I'm born in South Africa. I studied in South Africa. I qualified in South Africa. I got married in South Africa, and I had 2 beautiful boys. And my life was basically, it was a cocoon with the kind of life you think that can exist. And I was always aware of God, that super consciousness in my, from childbirth. I used to probably connect with the abstract, right? But when I went to a Christian school, I used to have Christ as the inner divine principle, but I knew I was not Christian, right? Swami came to me when I was just about to get married, actually. And I got my law degree, so I was filled with youthful ego and didn't quite understand who he was. So in 73, there was no right kind of inner connection with me and him from my side, not from our beloved Swami. I was in a friend's home, and the mother of the home came to me and said, I want you now to come with me. I'm driving you. You've got to go to this home in Tongaat. There's ashes coming out. Sai Baba wants to know you. Sai Baba wants you to know him. So I said to her, Ma, you can't believe all these things. You want to pray to God, pray directly to God. Don't follow gurus and people that, he could very well be a magician. Those were the words that I actually uttered, meaning that I thought Swami was a magician. So anyway, she said, you and my daughter are such close friends. Jenny, if you come with me, my daughter will also join, So I said, Ma, I'm sorry, I don't think I can, I have to have that inner feeling. And to be quite honest with you, when I pray humbly to God direct, So I had that kind of, yeah, and it was the image of Christ. I was not praying to Christ. I was praying to the image of Christ that to me represented how God would physically look. A big difference, because I knew I was not a Christian. I was not praying to through Christianity. I didn't know what I was praying through, but I knew that God would have that, because I always saw the love and compassion in Christ. Now, for me, that was what I thought God was all about. And it was only when I came to meet face to face with Bhagawan Sri Sathya Sai Baba, I realized immediately, but I am here in front of him. I'm recognizing myself. So it became real to understand that Swami took this physical birth so that there would be many souls that can then see why he says, I am God and you are God. Then in 1990, in the early years of 1990, there was total disruption in my life. Disruption also in my marriage, disruption in my professional life. It was on every front. I had a disabled brother. My father was late by now. There was just, an avalanche of things that I had to cope with. And I had 2 beautiful children that I was making sure that they had the best education and what have you.
How old were they?
At that time, in 93, they were just matric, and just about matric, in about that period.
Grade.
Yeah, 10th and 12th grade. But the fact of the matter was, what he did when after that, the chaos of the early 90s, what he did was, he got me to focus immediately on myself. Like the world, because I questioned, why am I going through this? Why should I go through this? Not with ego now. This was with all love and humility. Baba, what did I do?
You're asking Baba, but I thought you didn't.
No, this was in the 90s now, when this happened. Yeah. He came into my life again. He came back for me.
So how did that happen?
Out of the blue, I get somebody stops me and gives me a book. Sathya Sai book. This is for you. And then I there was a lady called Joy Ma. She used to run, she was not part of the organization. She used to have a shrine in the middle of town, and I had to go to get some legal documents signed. So I got a parking right in her premises, basically. You could walk up to her. So when I came back and I looked at this and I said, Sai Baba. So I walked up I didn't speak to her. I saw there were books and.
But there was a photo of Sai Baba.
Oh yeah, she ran like an independent center, and she was having a little satsang with people. I didn't know her, but she was feeding the street people. So I bought some books from her silently, and I left. Then I started
So all this
inquiring.
in which part in South Africa? Johannesburg.
No, Durban, from Durban. I'm from KwaZulu Natal. And then in 94, 95, I was relocated to La Mercy in the North Coast. And then my sister-in-law was, she by this time was very, very in tune with Sathya Sai Baba. But it was her journey. She wasn't going to influence anybody, but she brought basically Baba into our lives as well. So I told her, is there a Sai center here? So she said, yes, there's one in Seatides. So I said, okay, perfect. I'll take my late mother. So we joined the Sai Seatides center. That was, then immediately I was serving in every aspect of Baba's organization in South Africa, joining, and then, like you said.
All this before seeing him?
This was before seeing him. In 98, that I'm good. He tells me through the inner voice, come, that I get a letter from the Central Council appointing me to be on the Central Council and to come to Prashanti to attend a conference. So I thought they made a mistake. You know what I'm saying? I haven't gone through the ranks, so this is definitely somebody's hit and miss here. But I went. Whenever Swami spoke to me, internally, I've never disobeyed. So I left for Prashanti. I can safely say that my years of encounter, because from 1998, when he first called me to Prashanti Nilayam, till his Mahasamadhi, I've been with, raising two kids and all the issues that one faces in life. As I said, I did have challenges and I did have hardships. Every year, that in itself was a miracle. Every year, Swami called me to Prashanti Nilayam. And then I decided to write a book. I said, look, I've come here. I've had the most phenomenal experience. I've got two young boys. They probably think their mothers joined a cult because they didn't have Bal Vikas. I do not come from a Sai background at all. I said, let me give expression to this love in words. So I went back in 98 and I wrote a book. And I never thought much of it. I told my youngest son that his birthday was around the corner, and I said, listen, I'm dedicating this book to you and my older boy. And I said, if Swami ever calls me again, I'm going to take the book and I will try to get his blessings in the darshan line. Arvind, what happened was Swami communicated with me in 1998 through the inner voice. This is very important because, when you talk to people, they think you're bonkers. What the hell is she talking about, right? So in 1999, again, through the inner voice, he said, get ready for Prashanti. Next thing, I get a call from our national president. He says to me, Jenny, are you going to Prashanti for the second youth conference was coming up? I said, yes, I am going to the, I will be visiting Prashanti. I'm going there for Baba's birthday, and I'll stay on till the new year. So he said, we would like you to take care of the young girls. You be in charge. I said, thank you very much. I'll do my best. And he said, will you prepare a feasibility for the organization so that we can present something to Swami, get his blessings for the formation of an institute in Sathya Sai Institute in South Africa. So I said, okay, thank you. For the Sathya Sai Institute that we have today. Right. So what happened was I prepared a feasibility report for the organization, and I was told by our president, please take this through. Try and meet somebody who's the principal in Whitefields, Professor Swami, and Helen Swami. Take it to him, have a discussion with him. Jenny, you know everything about the background of the Sai schools and stuff like that. And so I said, yes, I will do that. I am going to go. So when I arrived in Whitefields, I saw some members of the Central Council, and I took a young adult female and an older brother. I said, come with me. I've been tasked to take this institute paper to Professor Swami. And Arvind, this is so incredible. Even meeting with him was a real leela. We got there and we were told he's left for Puttapati. So instead of walking back to the mandir and, to the precincts of Prashanti Nilayam, I said to both of them, I said, let's just sit on these stairs here and take in this ambience.
You were in Vrindavan?
I was in Vrindavan, right? Before we're going now, from Vrindavan, I'm going to Prashanti. So we sat on the stairs and then a guy comes in a bicycle. He says, South Africa. So I stood up, I said, yes. He says, Professor Swami says, please go to his room, he will meet you. I didn't question it. Although we were told he was gone to Puttapati, I didn't question it. I smiled and I told my brother, who's late now, and this lovely youth, I said, let's go back. So he said that Professor Swami came, talked to him, schools, and he gave very positive information how we should actually grow these schools, what we should look out for, etc. And then I said, look, I've brought this feasibility just to give an idea. South Africa feels that we will be ready together with the 3 schools that we have, that we could actually have an institute in our country. He looked at it, he didn't even read it. He says, you will have to give this to Swami. So I looked at him and I thought, what is, where am I, an ordinary devotee? In those days, I didn't even have special seating in Prashanti. I joined everybody in the chit line. So I kept quiet. The elders, you don't ask them why or whatever. I kept quiet. I said, Sairam. And that was the story. We came back. Then I said, look, our president and one of the founders of the Sathya Sai schools are going to be in Prashanti. Can I make a meeting with you and them, even if it's just for half an hour? And I'd like you to tell them what you've said to me as well. It's always better when people can hear it face to face. So he says, it might be difficult, but he says, you know what you do? The day he gave me his room number, he says, put a note under my door. And if I don't contact you through a student, then y'all must be promptly in my room at 7 o'clock. So I said, thank you, Sairam. So I went, I spoke to the leaders when they came. I said, look, the best I've done so far is I've had an audience with Professor Swami. What a wonderful person. I said, I've even managed to persuade him that we could actually, you two can have an audience with him. And which day? Because I have to put a note under his door. So they said, do it tomorrow. So I said, fine. They went, put it under his door. We went to the meeting. Exactly the same thing that he told me, he explained to them. Then again, this institute story cropped up. Again, Professor Swami says, she will have to hand it to Swami. Now, I could never make the connection. You got to understand my background. I didn't grow up in the Sai organization and that kind of protocol and stuff that, when somebody, I just follow the kind of etiquette that one has to follow when you're dealing with elders. So I thought, okay, he says I have to give Swami, and I thought, in which birth, in my mind, which birth am I going to give it to Swami? I have no opportunity to see Swami at all. So anyway, cut a long story short, that finished. So this happened when I took the feasibility with me, right? We get back to, we are now after the youth conference in 1999. Swami calls us after the morning darshan. He blesses some of us that had participated. I got a sari from him. I got Padam Namaskar. It was just wonderful. But what happened was, that afternoon on the 3rd of December, 1999, I was walking with 2 friends for the chit line, darshan chit line. Swami again, through the inner voice, says to me, go and get the book. You remember I brought the book from South Africa for my children? And I'm thinking, I can't defy Swami, even if I'm going mad. And I'm thinking, how can I take a book in? Because we're not allowed to take a pencil in, But I didn't.
Title for the book?
I called it A Heartbroken Lawyer Looking into the Fountain of Love, because of my, and of course, the story is my interaction with Swami at that stage, how the impact with me and the avatar. And then I always used to write poetry to Swami, and he took many from me from the darshan line, and every letter I wrote to him, there was always a poem. So, he's always recognized that part of me. So there was, but for some strange reason, I had said, this is part 1. Because I was still very early days in the organization, literally not even totally understanding what this impact was happening to me, let alone for me to be serving in such an environment. So I go back, collect it, but then the feasibility, it was an A4 paper, was there with my book. I grabbed both. And my son, when I was leaving them, I went to say goodbye to them there to the university. My eldest son, Rad, he came running out with a green pen. He said, Mom, if Swami ever calls you for an interview, please use my pen for him to sign your book. And I was sort of like taken aback. My son doesn't know much about the organization. Why would he actually may say something like that? And that's exactly what happened. I took his pen and I kept it with me. So I'm going to the darshan, not knowing what was going to unfold. Alvin, when I arrived there, everybody had gone in. There was only the Sevadal at the gate.
So darshan was over?
No, gone in now, waiting, the lines had gone in. So there was the Sevadal with their hands like this, shouting at me, run, Swami's coming out, I thought she's going to confiscate the book, she's going to confiscate this A4 because you can't take a pencil in. He must have made it invisible. I promise you, because what she did was she thrust me in. Instead of pushing me to the back, she pushes me to go down to the front. All the Sevadals are saying, go, go, go. I get to the red carpet just in front, the music starts. Swami comes in, and that's it. My life changes. He calls me for that interview. When I got in there, I was one of the sort of last ones because there was a lady, I think, from Canada, and she needed a chair. So I was running around to get the chair so she could sit. Then he came and stood right in front of me. He materialized hot vibhuti, and he said, eat. So I did that, and I went and sat down. But it was warm. It was warm. First, I'd never experienced something like this. So I'm calling it hot vibhuti because it was warm. So I ate it, right? Then we went into the smaller inner room. And when he took me into that inner room, and I looked into Swami's eyes, and he looked into my eyes. He has that twinkle in his eyes. It's like the eyes are dancing. I don't know how, I think only Sai devotees will know what I'm talking about. I recognized instantaneously that he was something beyond even my understanding. I was not confused that he was a self-realized sage or anything. I recognized myself. I felt he called me there for me to recognize myself. And that was the turning point in my life. And then he was talking. He spoke to me and even mentioned my children and spoke to me. I said to him, Swami, I want to practice Sai law. And he smiled and he told them, those who have seen their love lawyer, very happy.
Your children are also with you?
No, they were not. They were varsity. I was on my own. And so anyway, the interview finished. We were a very small group that he called in. We get up, but I was standing right almost next to him. Swami had stopped giving Padam Namaskar to the public. I don't know where I got the courage. I said, Swami, Padam, please. He said, take. So I got Padam Namaskar in the interview room with him. And we came out and he gave me lots of vibhuti. He allowed me to hold his hand. I was even able to kiss his hand. I mean, those are precious moments that you can't even share in a big audience. It was so intimate. And he smiled and really and truly made, what he did for me was, as I said, he made me recognize that divinity within myself. It was no longer an academic thing to read about wonderful books written by saints and sages, or to be totally wrapped up in some experience or whatever that was given to that person, which is important to that person. But this was for me. He got me totally involved with his divinity. And there was no separation. There was absolutely no separation. I came out of it knowing that my life had changed forever. Getting back to the institute, when I gave him the institute in the interview room, because I mean, he put his hand out for my book, And then he put his hand down again for the pen, and I'd forgotten I had the pen in my bag. So he brought my son into the grace, signed the pen with that green book. And yet a few days
He signed your book?
he signed my book with Love Baba. I've got the book. It's signed with him. I've kept it before for the children, and I said, I know at any stage when I finish part 2, then it can go out. But I've realized something, that the section that I covered in Prashanti, because it was my entire trip and my experiences in the darshan line and all of that, it's not been covered anywhere. So it is something that would be of significance at some point in time. But I leave it at his divine lotus feet, because I said to him, Swami, when the time is right, you communicate with me in the inner voice. You will tell me. Maybe it's not this bird. Maybe it'll be another bird. I don't know. So I'm quite comfortable with it. But getting back to the institute, I handed the paper to him, right? So he looked at it, he paged through it. And there was one section that I included a possible medical school synergy with the institute. And I had approached a very prominent medical person in South Africa, and he wrote a letter to me telling how he envisaged the kind of synergy we could in years to come have that, right? And Swami turned the page and he spent a lot of time looking at that. So then he handed it back to me. It's, Swami, you will have to guide us in South Africa. In my mind, I knew that it won't be a walk in the park. And you know what he did? He looked into my eyes like I'm looking into your eyes, and he said, Swami knows everything. Arvind, that was it. Full stop. When he said that, there was no need for me ever again to sit here and try to convince anybody. It's going to always be how I resonate, how I behave, whatever I do has to be a reflection of the divinity that he allowed me to recognize in himself. So that is the beautiful story of that wonderful encounter I had with him. I called me in 98, 99 he gives me an interview. So it was like, I didn't have time to even get to understand what this was all about. And then over the years, I recognized how Swami expects us to behave in his organization. I learned it all on the mandir, on the veranda. I used to sit in the Kulwant hall and I used to observe Swami. And what unfolded for me was I saw how he interacted with the leaders in the organization, like Dr. Narendranath Reddy, and in those days, Dr. Goldstein. And I said to myself, this is how Swami expects us to behave. We must carry back. When we serve him, we have to follow what he wants from us, not what we want to do. So I picked up a lot of, it's very hard to unfold and put it into words, but now that I am serving the organization at a higher level where I have to interact and I have to resonate Swami's teachings, I find that those little tips that I picked up from him on the veranda are absolutely, yes. Like I said, the respect that he expected from the leaders. They would go to him and they'd bow down. We take it for granted, yes, we would kneel in front of Swami, but the respect with which they would actually communicate with him. I saw it many times with you as a youngster communicating with Swami. Those gestures are not insignificant. They actually create for anybody that wishes to serve him, it's a kind of foundational guideline that you don't walk away from there thinking that you are an important person. You recognize that you are privileged to be in that position. So that was quite an interesting phenomenon for me, and I picked up a lot just sitting on the darshan lines. I know in a sense that he brought absolute havoc into my life in the early 90s. And that was very, very deliberate, because Swami knew in order for me to recognize who I am, I had to understand that there was more than just qualifying, leading a wonderful life, an easy, wonderful life. There had to be an inner recognition, and that Maybe in this birth I forgot about it. But and I know I've been with him in other births, many births perhaps, for me to have experienced the divine grace that he gave me, especially during his lifetime. I used to then attend every conference almost from 99 onwards till 2015 post Samadhi. I used to go to the Sai conferences, and I always made sure that I would absorb as much as I could to align my life, because now after 99 I knew exactly that there is another side to human existence. And you can't debate it with anybody. You can't. I don't push this even with my children, with my family. It's my personal private journey. As a leader in the organization, I strive. I'm human. I do make mistakes, but I strive to make sure that there's that resonance that Swami expects of us. That's all I do. I try to do that. I try to focus on that. And I also try to call out things that I know are dharmic. I will not participate in it. I don't make a song and dance about it, but I make it very clear. Like when we had the huge split in the organization in South Africa, I made it very clear to members in the other camp when they were trying to sort of create independent organizations or join the split group. I said, guys, I promise you, you could take everybody. Everybody can go across, but there'll be one devotee that will never leave Swami's organization. And I said, you know what? It will never collapse. It will be there forever. I can't speak for anybody else, but if I'm saying that, there are hundreds in this country that feel exactly like me. And they are serving Swami so beautifully, so with such love and dedication. And I experienced that. An interesting point Swami made to me was he brought up the story about the Lanka Bridge. And it was very relevant for me because I was still, I was not a young person. I was an elderly person, but not an old person at that stage when I was at the second youth conference. He was trying to drive home that as an older person, there has to be that Lanka Bridge. You have to relate to youth. You can't drive them away. You can't be steadfast in even interpreting his teachings. Yes, you got to be broad-minded. So I always felt that that was a responsibility he gave to me. So I found that at this point in time, with being blessed to look after the organization in South Africa, and I'm surrounded by young adults, I have the most beautiful relationship with them because I'm there just to give them that extra edge, because I'm there to encourage their creativity, to also protect them. Remember, I was a young youth. I was filled with ego. I missed the boat with Swami. So I'm there now to, from my personal experience, to nudge them. Be careful. Always listen to the elders. You might not see the importance of that. I learned that lesson from Swami on the veranda. Never disregard wisdom coming from the elders. Even if it's the wrong information coming through, Swami will give you the grace to interpret it correctly. Don't show disrespect. So that's basically how I have actually interacted. So I've got a whole collection of poetry from one. I have to describe this to you because I think it is so unique. I was busy. I took my mother for her 80th birthday. She was in cardiac failure. Swami gives my mother a dream for the first time in her life one morning, and gives me a dream the same morning, instructing me a very short dream. He was coming like he was rushing, and he said, Jenny, bring my mother to Prashanti. He goes to her and tells her, you can come to Prashanti. After being told by the doctor she's in cardiac failure. So I had to convince the family. I said, I'm taking her. I said, look, Swami said I must bring her. I'm taking her. So we went to Prashanti, right? I'm there, and I had a disabled brother, and it was my mother's wish that I take my disabled brother before Swami as well. So we get to Prashanti. And I was busy. There was also a conference there. So I attended the conference. So it was just before his birthday. I spent 2 months with my mother there, believe it or not. And I wrote a poem.
Which year was it?
This was in 19, it was 2000, right? This was, sorry, this was 2001 because she died in 2002 when we got back 4 months later. So it was in 2001, November. So it was his birthday coming up. So I was rushing around with the conference and everything, doing seva. So I'm sitting in the darshan line and I write a poem. By now we're allowed to take a little book and a pen, so I was able to do that. I had an envelope, I put the poem in, sealed it, and on top I wrote there, to be handed to you any day after the 26th. Happy birthday, Swami. Then I used this as a bookmarker in the little book that I was reading. I ran on there. I don't know, because I knew there were millions of people there. I'm never going to get an opportunity. And with the chit line, you didn't know whether you'll get one or not, right? I was still drawing the chits up until that point. I forgot about it. I then get an opportunity on the 26th of November. I draw line 1. But the day before this, Swami, you might recall this, Swami actually did this. He came in, and then instead of walking on the red carpet, he walked all the way down on one side. Didn't look at anybody on the other side, right? And he stopped and he did things, and then he went, and then he came around to the boys, and then he went on to the mandir. The day I get line 1, shocked, and our beautiful position, sitting there, I said, oh my God, what? I don't have a letter. Then I realized my bookmark is my poem. Alvin, this is so beautiful. I said, oh, he's definitely going to come. I'll have an opportunity to hold it out. You know what Swami does? He comes, instead of coming on our side, he again walks down the other way, totally ignoring all of us. He comes opposite me. There's a lovely mother sitting there, does this, materializes vibhuti, and starts walking. By now, I had closed my eyes. I had no expectations, and I was praying to him. I can't even tell you what I was thinking. He stops. He walks diagonally across, comes to me, and I realize he's walking to me. As he was walking to me, he gave the most ethereal perfume smell I've never ever. It wasn't his usual jasmine smell. Comes and takes the poem, turns around, goes back to the other side, doesn't look at anybody on this side, and walks away. That was the most phenomenal thing that I ever experienced on the darshan line from him, because there was no preparation for it. All I had said, days before his birthday, this will be handed to you on the 26th of November. So I'm one of those devotees that implicitly believes in his omnipresence, that understands that Swami knows everything. So you're only bluffing yourself if you think that you're in control of anything. We're in control of nothing. It is his will, planned from whatever consciousness we all emerge from. We are little droplets, but we are significant droplets. And that's the cycle of life. And that is the cycle of Sai life. If only we could actually forget all these differences, sublimate these egos, and we can all unite and really and truly share Swami's love, that he took that physical body, he entrapped himself to be amongst us, to walk amongst us. And I've listened to so many of your beautiful discourses, and we can sense that love you show and that you have experienced. So even though I'm from South Africa, I was not forgotten. He came back to me. I denounced him in 1973. He came back. So I often think to myself, you broke me down, you rebuilt me, and now what is my gratefulness to you is to live the reality you have, ignited. So that's my story, basically. I will serve him till my last breath. It doesn't matter in what capacity. That is Swami's drama. That is Swami's drama. And I'm quite happy to be part and parcel of his drama.
You said that you have learned a lot of things observing Swami.
Yes.
Now what do you do? Because there's no Swami to observe.
But you know what he did? That interview in 99, when I looked into his eyes and he looked into my eyes, what did I see? I recognized myself in him. So I realized that I don't have to go and have his physical form in front of me to understand my inner divinity. I love writing poetry to Swami. I actually wrote a poem about what was it? It was called, this was after his I Am the Witness. If you want me to read it out to you, it will sum up my thinking process, because it was a poem that I signed and at least wrote and put it in the shrine. Simple truths made complicated through the prism of the ever-changing mind. The penny has dropped. Who am I? Where have I come from? And where am I going? The truth be told, I am pure consciousness, nothing less, nothing more. Everything else is only appearances. There can be but only one supreme consciousness. That is Brahman. I am Brahman beyond the little jiva. Have you grasped it? Say no more. And this was done by me in January 2022 in South Africa.